Good morning. It was funny, Pastor was saying, have you listened to the YouTube videos, and the sound, my sound just sounds a little funny. And I said, yeah, John had mentioned it, and I said, well, we figured out what the problem is, because I looked at the videos and I experimented with it yesterday. It's really obvious because the way I'm using the microphone is like this, and when Pastor speaks, he's speaking like this, and but by that position thing definitely makes a difference in what the sound quality sounds like. So we're working on that. I hope everybody's doing well today. A little bit gray outside today, but anybody that complains about it being too hot, I will take you out back and beat you unmercifully. It's not snow. I will take the warm over the snow because, all right, fine. When it's really hot outside, you know what the great thing is? I don't have to shovel it. Yeah, it gets a little warm, but it's okay, so it's warm. I just deal with it. Yes, I will take that over the cold. I will take that over the snow any day of the week. So last week we were continuing with our flood timeline. We're going to wrap up today with flood timeline today. Next week I'm away on a scout camping trip. So we've got a video. I figured out how to be able to do videos with no commercials. Hey! So we've got that for next week. It's a video where we're going next in terms of timeline here with the course is going into the science and the geophysics of the flood. Is there any evidence that the flood actually happened? But then a little piece of that is going to be, well, we've got this almost 500-foot long ship that we know physically existed. Now, granted, it was 6,000 years ago, but where is it? Is there any evidence, if we're looking at, is there evidence that the flood happened? Is there any evidence, physical evidence of the existence of Noah's Ark? And that's what the video next week is. It's on a very good possibility that we may have actually discovered the remains of Noah's Ark. So we're going to look at that next week. I will go into that somewhat then that following week, and then go onward into the sort of the geology of the flood, flipping back almost a little bit to the whole science in the Bible thing of looking at the science that helps to support the happening of the flood. So our flood timeline, sort of review a little bit. Day 1, the 400th day of Noah's life on the second month, the 17th day. So let's sort of keep that in mind. The middle of February is when the flood started. The fountains of the great deep opening up, and then the windows of heaven, the rain. We will come back to the rain thing in a minute. So for 40 days, it rained. No, different word for rain. It's that torrential rain combined with the opened fountains of the deep caused the flood waters to rise as we go through. At day 150, and what I wanted to do, let me do this real quick. Let me grab my Bible. And let's read through. We're going to read through the timeline first. Open this up here. Something Denise had said last week. She really enjoyed reading through it all first and then going back. And I all of a sudden remembered that. We're looking at Genesis 7, starting at verse 17, and the flood was 40 days upon the earth, and the waters increased and bare up the ark, and it was lifted up above the earth. And the waters prevailed and were increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark went upon the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly on the earth, and all the high hills that were under the whole heaven were covered. 15 cubits, a cubit is between 18 and 20 inches. So we're looking 25 to 30 feet or so. Upward did the waters prevail, and the mountains were covered. So the mountains were covered by a minimum of 30 feet of water, the entire surface of the earth. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beast and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and of every man. All in whose nostrils were the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died. That was important, that literally everything died. So now let's jump up to verse 24. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. And that's where we're at right here. That the waters prevailed upon the earth for 150 days. All right, we think of, again, that oversimplification of the flood being 40 days and 40 nights. It was a lot longer than that. Then chapter 8, and God remembered Noah and every living thing and all the cattle that was with him on the ark. And God made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters assuaged. And the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain from heaven was restrained. And the waters returned from off the earth continually. And after the end of 150 days, the waters were abated. So the waters were rising up to that point. So now at that point, the waters now begin to recede. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, were the tops of the mountains seen. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the windows of the ark which he had made, and he sent forth a raven, which went to and fro until the waters were dried up off the earth. Also he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot, and she returned unto him in the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. Then he put forth his hand and took her and pulled her unto him into the ark. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet another 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again to him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, the waters were dried up from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the earth was dry. And in the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, was the earth dried. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth from the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. So let's continue with our timing here. So we're up to day 150. So flood starts the middle of February. It is now the middle of July. All right, because when you read it and you read, on the 2nd month, the 17th day, and then on the 7th month, the 17th day, you sort of gloss over because they say 7th month, 2nd month. Let's put it in our terms. Now, the Jewish calendar had 12 months, each of 30 days, all right, which is not 365 days. It's slightly off. But just to simplify it, we're going to put it into our calendar. And again, we're looking here in the middle of July. The waters finally begin to recede. The fountains of the great deep, the windows of heaven are stopped. The rain is stopped. The waters begin to recede, and the ark comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat. And we're going to look at that in a lot more detail. What's interesting is Mount Ararat, the one that they keep using to say, the ark is somewhere on this mountain that's in very eastern Turkey, very close to the border of Iran. The problem with Mount Ararat is that it is a stratovolcano. It's a relatively young mountain. It has erupted in recent times. It has erupted in historical times. And if the ark did indeed land on that mountain, we're not going to find it because it's buried under lava. But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't say that it landed on Mount Ararat. it landed on the mountains of Ararat. And there's an entire mountain range there. And there's a lot of, some of the things we're going to see in the video next week, some really good explanations for why Mount Ararat doesn't make sense. Number one, it probably wasn't there yet. Number two, it's covered with ice and snow most of the year. And if God is bringing Noah and the animals through the flood, putting them up on this mountain, and then saying, okay, out, done, go out and be fruitful, and you come walking out of the ark into ice and snow, God's protecting him for all this time, and then after the flood, I'm going to dump you out on this big icy mountain and try to get down this big icy mountain without getting yourself killed. It doesn't make sense. We're going to look at it more next week. So that is the middle of July. On the 10th month, the first day, so the 1st of October. So now we're going from the middle of July to the 1st of October. He's still hanging out in the ark. There's this mindset that it was 40 days and 40 nights, and that it was a lot longer than that. And the waters are continuing to recede. They start receding, they start dropping down at day 150, but now here we are on day 224. The waters are continuing to recede. And the mountaintops finally become visible. We can begin to see the tops of the mountains. The ark grounds itself on the mountains, and as the waters continue to recede, we begin to start to see the tops of the mountains in Genesis 8:5. Now we come to a sequence that's a little bit confusing, and as I went through it, I found a timeline that was in Answers in Genesis that is, and it really helped me with this, so I didn't have to go through and count the days. They did okay, this was the date, this is how many days, and what the event was. And as I'm going through this, I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, that's not what it says. They're off by a week. They weren't, and we're going to look at that here. So, beginning of October, we can see the mountains. Now, here it is, the beginning of November, and Noah releases a raven in Genesis 8, 6, and 7. He lets a raven loose, and the raven goes out and just flies around. It can't find anywhere to land, so it's implying that there are still, or the land is still greatly covered with water at that point. And it doesn't land because the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. Yes, we can start to see the mountaintops, but the water is still draining away. It's still gradually receding. A week later, Genesis 8, and 9, he releases a dove. Now, here's where these verses get a little confusing. In Genesis 8, 6, and 7, it came to pass at the end of 40 days, that's our day 220, that's our day 264, the 11th of November. Verse 7, he sent forth a raven which went to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Also, he sent forth a dove from him. So it almost implies that he released a raven and a dove at the same time. And that was my confusion. But if you keep going, the dove found no rest, and the dove came back. Now, verse 10. He stayed yet another 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove. So there's sort of this implication that he sent forth the raven, waited a week, and then sent forth a dove. And it came back with nothing. All right. And then again he waited 7 days. From day 264, the 11th of November, to the 18th of November is a week. And then if I keep going here, Noah again waits 7 days and again releases the dove. So there's sort of this, that doesn't make sense there, but it does. He sends forth the raven, he waits 7 days, releases a dove, and then waits another 7 days. That's where that implication of the one in the middle, because he releases the raven and the raven doesn't land. He releases a dove and the dove doesn't land either. Why would you send them both out at the same time? That's sort of silly. So he sends forth the raven first, then he sends forth the dove, comes back with nothing. The end of November, the 25th, he releases the dove, and now it returns with an olive leaf, implying that we've got some trees, we've got some dry ground out there somewhere. That's good. Notice what's really interesting, though, here. He still hasn't opened the door. Oh, we're starting to see dry ground. Yeah, okay. Who told him to get into the ark? God. God put him in the ark. God closed the door. Noah's sitting there waiting for more instructions. All right. God told me what to do. I built the ark. We got into the ark. We got through all this stuff. I'm waiting for more instructions. I'm not taking it upon myself to do what's going on, which is smart. So now here we are, another week, another 7 days, the beginning of December. He releases the dove again, and now this time it does not come back. The implication that it now finds somewhere to be able to nest, somewhere to be able to land. Great. Things are improving. Things are getting better. But again, Noah is waiting. He's waiting on God's timing. New Year's Day, the 601st year, the first month, the first day. Day 314. Still in the ark. The surface of the earth was dry. In Genesis 8:13, it says the surface of the earth was dry. But again, Noah still doesn't leave the ark. And we're going to see why this is when we get into the science and the geophysics of what's going on here. When you read the verses, and what I find interesting about this is that in chapter 9, verse 11, and I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, killing all living things. Neither shall there any more be a flood to destroy the earth. The flood did more than kill everything. The flood fundamentally altered the geology and the geophysics of the earth. It was a fundamental change. It wasn't just dealing with the living things. It also fundamentally changed the structure of the earth. God knew things aren't stable yet. It's not safe for Noah and the animals to get out of the ark yet. So here it is, New Year's Day. The surface of the earth is dry, but there's still stuff going on. Noah opens up the windows of the ark to be able to see, and he sees that the surface of the earth is dry, which is great, but we're still waiting. We're waiting on God. Day 370, February 27th, over a full year. Now the earth has dried out. If you go back, and it's interesting the difference in verbiage there. In chapter 8, verse 13, Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. The face of the ground was dry, the top. Then, in verse 14, in the second month, on the 7th and 20th day of the month, was the earth dried. Not just the surface. The earth had dried out. It's now, things have stabilized. Everything that happened, all the destruction, all the changes, everything that happened from a geophysical standpoint to the Earth's structure have now finally stabilized, and it's safe enough for living things to come back out and to live on the surface of the earth. And God told Noah to leave the ark. He says to open up the door and go out, you and your family and the animals, release them from the ark. Be fruitful and multiply. You've got to repopulate the earth. What's on the ark is what's repopulating the earth. I love that the thing from the evolution video that we saw, how they contrasted the tree of life from that single start and then everything branching out. And then the biblical mindset of the individual kinds. And what I loved was the fact that he maintained the mindset that we've got all the individual kinds at creation, and then there's the flood, and there's a very distinct break point of those kinds from pre-flood to post-flood. So there's definitely a change. We've got the branching of animal types, of animal kinds, pre-flood, and then he took one of each kind. All right, so he didn't bring every different kind of dog, he just brought one, but with the genetic information to be able to produce all the different kind of variations of dogs that we see. But he tells them to go out, to be fruitful and multiply. And they went out by families from the ark. You can't be fruitful and multiply if it's just one. And you can't be fruitful and multiply if it's two males that go off. It's got to be by families. It's just like he brought them onto the ark, a male and his female. They left the ark the same way, a male and his female, so that they can be fruitful and multiply. And then I did expand my slide from the very beginning. I had originally said that this was Genesis 6 through 8. Genesis 9 is important too, as we go into the post-flood, at least the early post-flood. I'm skipping over verses 1 through 8. That's a big chunk of go out and be fruitful and multiply. But I want to start with the covenant. And starting in Genesis 9, verse 9, and I behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, of every beast of the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, or all that come out of the ark, to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of a flood, neither shall any more be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant that I make between you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the waters shall no longer become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and I shall look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. So we've got something new. God establishes a covenant, a promise. Yes, I did this once, I'm never going to do it again. And interesting, the covenant is not just with man in verse 9, but it's also with all of the other living things. I thought that was kind of interesting, that God's not just promising man, but he's promising all living things, all of the creatures that came forth from the ark, that he will never again, and we already touched on this once, kill all creatures with a flood. That's the one that we think of. That, he's never going to do this with a flood, and he's never going to kill everything with a flood. That's number one. But number two, he's never going to destroy the earth with a flood. Is he eventually going to destroy the earth? Yep. Different way. Fire. When he destroys the earth in Revelation, he's destroying the earth with fire. Totally different process. Totally different thing. And then he creates a sign. He creates a token. A token or sign of the covenant in verse 13. That he will set a bow in the cloud. And I love that. That is so cool because he says it 3 different times. It's the rainbow. And of course, the rainbow has been sort of co-opted by some other groups as a way to sort of demean it or whatever you want to call it. But it definitely is a way to make it less important. So the rainbow, it's a reminder of that covenant. Are there going to be rains and floods? 100%. It's raining outside today. Yes, we will absolutely have rains and floods, without a doubt. That's not what God said. God did not say there will never again be rains and floods. That's not what he said. What he said was that it will never become a flood to destroy all flesh. He's never again going to have a global flood. Individual local floods, yes, but not a global flood. And again, one of the big things that the arguments against the flood is that, oh, well, this was just a local flood. It was just in one place. Well, how can you have a flood just in one place that covers all mountains? Number one. But this right here, all right, the fact that he emphasizes that he will never have this flood to destroy all flesh, this all-encompassing global flood, that he will never do again. Are we going to have rains and floods? Yes. Are people going to be killed in rains and floods? Yes. But not all life. That's important. The rainbow introduces an interesting question. And I had touched on this, and I literally touched on it and kept going at an earlier part. And my wife had said something about it. She said, "You didn't get into that." I said, "Yeah, I know. I know I didn't. I'm getting there." But there's an interesting question, and I had literally just touched on it. Was there rain before the flood? Interesting. Let's look at it. Because the Bible does not specifically directly say it, but it does strongly imply it. So, in Genesis 2, verses 5 and 6, I'm going to put down my thing so I can change my page. Genesis 2, verses 5 and 6. "And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground." Verse 6, "But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground." Okay, so at creation, no rain, and that there's a mist from the earth at creation. Cool. That's during the 7 days of creation. And the Bible is now silent on the word rain from there to Genesis 6. Doesn't say a word about it. What can we imply to that? There's no rain. It doesn't specifically say it, but because he does specifically say there was no rain and there's a mist at creation. Now, of course, things changed at some point in there. Adam goofed up. Okay, Adam sinned. Adam gets thrown out of the garden. And things do change at this point. All right, we now have thorns and weeds and having to eat based on the sweat of your brow and all of that stuff that came because of the fall, that came because of sin. Those things all changed. But it doesn't say anything at that point, All right, so there's going to be thorns, there's going to be weeds, there's going to be all that stuff, but he doesn't say anything about rain there in that change. So we're going to make the assumption that at that point, that had not changed. All right, the geophysics aspect has not changed. Still no rain, just the mist. So correct, no rain. Up to the flood, there's no such thing as rain. That would have been an odd one for God to be telling Noah, yep, we're gonna have this flood, and the fountains of the great deep are gonna open up, and there's gonna be rain falling, and Noah's sitting there going, rain? What's that? What's rain? What is that thing? So interesting, the rainbow actually confirms it. The rainbow actually confirms it. And it was funny as I was going through this and I was putting the lesson together, and I was going over it with Denise. She said, oh, there's that physics thing again. I said, yeah, there is. There is. Here's some interesting science that proves that there was no rain prior to Genesis 6. We don't have to assume, we can prove it. You need raindrops to form a rainbow. You have to have raindrops. Now, the way that works, it's a process called refraction. Light is refracted, that means bent, versus reflected. Reflected is bounce, refracted is bent. And when light gets bent, different frequencies, different colors of light bend by different amounts. That's what a prism does. It breaks the light. It doesn't break the light up. It bends it, and when it bends, the different colors bend by different amounts, so it spreads out. White light is all the colors, all the frequencies. And refraction breaks them up. It spreads them out into our colors. But you need a certain size drop in order to have that happen. It has to be bigger than 1 millimeter and best to be between 2 and 3, all right, which is not very big, but it's got to be larger than 1 millimeter and it's best to be between 2 and 3 millimeters. That's the physics. Mist drops are 0.001 millimeters to 0.35 millimeters. They're way too small. They're way, way, way too small to be able to form a rainbow. Can't do it. How big are raindrops? 0.5 to 6 millimeters. They're the right size. They got to be between 1 and 3. Raindrops are between 0.5 and 6. All right. If there's no rain, you can't have a rainbow. And the rainbow was something new. God put the rainbow in the clouds as something, as a new thing. Now here's the process. This is what's going on. The white light comes in, it hits the surface of the water drop, and it bends, going from air into the water drop. It bends a little bit, hits the back of the water drop, and reflects off. It bounces off the back of the water drop, hits the surface between the water, going back to the air, and it continues to refract. It continues to spread out. That's what goes on. That's the process. That's the physics process of what makes a rainbow happen. And that's why you have to have the big water drop. If the water drop's too small, there's not enough here to begin to make that process happen, and you don't get the colors. You can get like the halo around a moon, that kind of thing, but that's not a rainbow. All right, that's caused by ice crystals. It's a similar process, but not identical. And you're not getting the colors because the drops are too small. Whoops. And the physics of the rainbow actually confirms the covenant, because God says, I will put my bow in the cloud. He doesn't say in the sky. He says in the cloud. He says it 3 times. He says it in verse 13, he repeats it in verse 14, and repeats it in verse 16. That when I see the bow in the cloud, it will remind me of this covenant. Now what's interesting, in order to form a rainbow, you've got to have a very specific set of positions of the observer, us, the raindrop, and the sun. Okay, in order to have a rainbow, sun's back there, I'm in the middle, rain's over there. That's how it has to be. The sunlight goes into the water drop, it refracts, it bounces off the back of the water drop and then bounces back toward me in order to form it. You cannot ever, ever, never, 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 never. If you ever see a picture of the sun with a rainbow around it, it's fake. Can't have it. The physics won't let it happen. You cannot have it. And you will always have clouds as a backdrop to the rainbow because you need the raindrops that are coming out of the clouds, sun back here, raindrops and clouds over there. So where's the rainbow always going to be? In the cloud. Always. It has to be. The physics of it, who made the physics? Oh yeah, him. Here's your arrangement. You always have to have the sun behind you, you're in the middle, and the rain and clouds are in front of you. The interesting other piece to that is that when does that happen? As the rain is ending. The storm comes through, the rain clouds come by, the sun starts to come out, and the clouds are still moving away from you, and you get that arrangement to get the rainbow. God made it that way on purpose. The physics of it emphasizes and reminds us that, yeah, this is real. And that rainbows could not have happened before that because we didn't have rain. All we had was mist. And with mist, you can't form a rainbow. So this was a brand new phenomenon. This was something new that God created on the earth as a reminder of the covenant. Rainbow, hey, this is at Niagara Falls, all right? And yeah, the Maid of the Mist, but those drops getting thrown upward from the falls are big enough to be able to cause a rainbow, obviously, because we've got one there. A rainbow, by the way, is a circle. A rainbow is actually a complete circle. We don't see the whole thing because the ground's in the way. All right, but if you were to ever be in an airplane in this arrangement, if instead of you being here on the ground, here, if you're up here in an airplane, you see a full circle. A rainbow is actually a full circle because a raindrop is round as the light refracts out of it. Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Denise and I's 40th anniversary, we went up for a week to Niagara Falls in October, which is, you want to go to Niagara Falls in a great time of year? Beginning of October. Oh, it's fantastic. The weather's great, and there's no people. Oh, it was a blast. We had a great time. Yes. If the water drop is big enough, it can actually get a double bend. The light bends twice. It goes in, if I go back, there. If the water drop is big enough, light goes in, bounces, comes out here. Some of the light goes out, some of it bounces back, and then comes out again. If you get the real big, and you usually get those after you've had really, really, really heavy rain, bigger raindrops. And that second rainbow is always fainter because it's bouncing more. It's getting a longer path. There. Notice, by the way, our arrangement is right. Shadows. That means the sun's behind me. All right? The sun's behind me. I'm in the middle. The water drops are here, and we're getting the rainbow. And then, oh, isn't that cute? Nice plug for Apple. They do some great things called Today at Apple sessions, where they teach you how to use Apple products like iPhones and iPads and Apple Watch and stuff like that. But they also do ones on things like how to be a better photographer. I stunk. And Denise and I took several different Today at Apple sessions on photography, and I think I got a little better. I think that's a good one. But yeah, And again, there's the shadow. You got the sun behind us. And typically, by the way, you also get it when the sun is relatively low in the horizon. When it's up too high, it bounces. What you get is the sunlight. The sunlight comes down, bounces off, and because it's coming from a way high angle, it bounces off and it bounces down into the ground. You typically get rainbows. They typically tend to be late in the day as the sun is setting. And that's what this was. You can see it from the length of the shadow. This was like 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And the sun was setting to our west and then looking to the east. We were over on the Canadian side. If you go to the Canadian side. Don't go to the New York side. The New York side is like, so to wrap up, Genesis 6 to 9:17, the most chronologically detailed and recorded year in the Bible. I think I said that back on the first day. I know I did because I cut and pasted that. But is there evidence that it actually happened? We've got it here. We know it actually happened because it's here and we know this is true. Is there physical evidence that the flood actually occurred? The answer is yes. All right, the rainbow's a great one. But yeah, and have we actually found Noah's Ark? We might have. Be really cool if we did. Be really cool if we could find the Ark of the Covenant. Oh, that's right, Indiana Jones did find that. They put that in that big warehouse thing. But have we found Noah's Ark? We might have. Video we're going to see next week sort of gives some information on that. We're going to continue with that then in 2 weeks. Go a little bit into some of the aspects of have we found Noah's Ark, and then go into, well, let's talk about what are these fountains of the deep, and how can we explain some of the geological features that we see on the Earth's surface, the mountain ranges, the volcanoes, the trenches in the ocean where it gets real deep, the mid-ocean ridges, that the secular explanation is plate tectonics. Again, that long, slow process thing, the Grand Canyon and all that kind of stuff, we're going to look at that aspect. Then we go from there to why did we have to have the flood in the first place, which then leads into the final part of this, which is the Genesis 6, 1 through 4, those sort of glossed over verses, that there were giants in the earth in those days, that whole thing, talking about the Nephilim. So that's where we're going. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the video next week. And then in 2 weeks, we'll continue onward.
Have a good camping.
Oh, yeah, well, I think we're going to have it's the camp that we're going to for summer camp. So it gives the kids an opportunity to be able to see where we're going to go and where things are and stuff like that. It's a real good time. It's out near Carlisle, Pennsylvania is where we're going. So a little bit of a haul, but it'll be a good time. Let's close in prayer. Lord, we thank you so much for the day that you've given to us, for safety and travel today. Continue to pray for Ron, for Larry, and for Barb to help them with their sicknesses and the things that are going on with them. Bring them back to us. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to share your word and to share the truths in your word. Pray that you would help people to put those things into their minds, just to help remind them that God is real, and that what we see in the Bible is real, and that there's evidence in the world that it is true and that it is real, Lord. Pray for our upcoming service, for Zach, that you would hide him behind the cross, bring a message strong and true, that many souls would be saved today. All these things we ask in your son's name. Amen.